He is Syracuse through and through. He is a burgeoning golf star. We're going to talk about that as well. And then, of course, what he's doing career-wise. There's really nothing he hasn't done. It's sort of like around the world with Peter Coughter. Currently a supervising producer at iHeartMedia, works a lot in the podcast division, but he's worked at ESPN. He's worked at Spectrum and other entities as well. And we're going to tell his story professionally and personally, yes, here on the Onto Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio and a broadcaster. First of all, Peter, I appreciate you doing this. Looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, thanks. No problem. Glad to be here.
So now that you're here, I got to get into something that you did recently, and that is you went on a trip golf-wise to Scotland, and I want to get a play-by-play of what kind of golfer you really are.
I am not really a golfer. I played a little bit like college days, right after college when I didn't have a job yet. I played a decent amount and I was okay. And now I'm a person who can hit a golf ball, but I can't play golf. I'm terrible at my short game is terrible. My putting is terrible, but it was an awesome trip with me and my college buddies who still play golf all the time and are really good. I got dragged along to go to Scotland and we got to play Carnoustie and St. Andrews, and those were at the end of the trip. So that was cool. I was able to kind of get it together a little bit by then. And I was able to shoot, pretty well, low 80s for those rounds, and hit some decent shots on the road hole. And, then Carnoustie, I got the ball on the green, so it was like real golf for a little bit on some of the big courses. So I was very excited about it.
Now, when you got the ball in the green there at Carnoustie, did you actually throw the ball in the green, or did you?
There were a few moments where I was in the bunker, and I'm a little over 6 feet tall, and the bunker was probably 8-10. I'm standing there like, you want me to hit this? Like, I don't even know why I'm trying. I just whack it in the wall and then throw it up.
It's almost like you got to hit backwards just to get it forwards. And to the point of which you went on this golfing trip, your career has been quite the eclectic trip. And when you think about all the stops that you've had, the evolution in your career, what has stayed the same with you through it all?
Well, I think one thing that stayed with me is when I was back at ESPN. I was there for 9 years, starting in 2004. It's kind of like the lifestyle, I guess, it becomes like who you are a little bit more when you work in the business, like this business where it's like, I work nights, I work holidays, I work weekends. I don't even understand, like, what, you off today? What day is it? Oh, it's 4th of July. I didn't realize, like that kind of stuff. And so like when I was working on a bunch of shows at ESPN, that was just kind of part of how we did it, and like we lived in this little Bristol bubble that like everyone worked nights, holidays, weekends, 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And that was just the world. And now I'm actually have a different job now where I work for iHeartMedia, and it's kind of like more 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And I find myself having trouble like understanding like, wait, I gotta like be on a call at 9 a.m. or I gotta, wait, well, I'm not, it's Saturday night. I'm not doing something. What's happening? This is weird, so I'm breaking out of that sort of like ESPN, like lifestyle of constantly working. And that's like my free social time was gone. It was all just working in the sports business world.
How hard is it, Peter, to deprogram a little bit, going from constantly on the go and a lot of fun doing it, but then having this more set schedule where you're able to sort of predict what you're doing and when you're doing it?
I mean, it's kind of great. Like I have a 6-year-old daughter, who I actually get to see at normal times now. She comes home from school and I can pick her up or take her to places, and we can go get ice cream or whatever. And it's like a normal life, and it's kind of weird. I didn't sign up for this, but I am excited about it now that I like I get to see my family a lot more. Like, what are we going to do on the weekend? I don't know. We have a weekend. Let's do something, as opposed to like, I have a weekend once every, 6 months. And now it's like a weekend every weekend. I don't know what to do about it. So I kind of love it. I'm kind of embracing the new world.
What is your daughter teaching you?
Definitely patience. Yes. She's a little bit of a little spoiled, and a little she's an only child. So, she's probably a little spoiled, but she's great. She's just very, very excited, very, wants to do her own thing all the time, wants you to do whatever she wants to do all the time. Typical 6-year-old girl probably, but I lived in this world of, like, I wasn't always in charge, but like when I was producing shows, I was kind of like, in charge of the show that day. And if I told someone that we need this done by this time and this done this time, and things just kind of happened, and I probably get used to that, like, can you do this? Can you do that? And people did stuff. It was great. And now you tell her to do something, it doesn't really happen. It's not how it works. You can't just be like, hey, Leah, what happened to, you didn't get that VO cut? What happened? No, not gonna work that way. She kind of does her own thing all the time, and I'm just along for the ride. She's in charge, and I've got to learn to be patient with her and to slowly, hopefully, wrestle some control of the house back from her.
She obviously runs the house, as you said. When do you find that she does listen to you more so than other times?
Sometimes, like if it's at night and she's trying to get her to go to sleep, you feel like you can get a little bit of listening in. Or if we're out doing something and she kind of knows that she's not in her comfort zone, like in her house, she can, like, if we're in a parking lot and there's cars around, she might wise up for a second. Or, we're out with company, she'll kind of realize that this is not the time to act terribly, and she'll listen to me. But it's hard. It's not very consistent, Bryan. To be honest, it's a struggle every day.
I am not a father yet. Definitely plan to be at some point. So duly noted. I am soaking in all of this information, looking forward to it.
Yeah, no rush. Take your time.
Yeah. But to the point of which a lot of it is on the job training, being a dad. Sure, you can learn some things along the way, or you can study, read, or listen to other people's opinions or feedback on how they have parented. But if you think about sort of going back to your career and sort of the decisions you made, part of it has to be learned and some of it's instinctive. How do you balance that? And how have you relied on both of those to sort of decide what's best for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to bring it back. Like being a father, you can't learn it beforehand. You just have to do it, as far as I can tell, at least. I'm not an expert, obviously, but like it's same with producing shows, whether I was at ESPN or Spectrum or Turner. Every place is different. Every setup is different. And the best way to learn to do something is just to do it, right? You just got to jump in. And like, I used to tell people that I was trying to teach how to produce a show, that, I can give you a lot of the tricks, or I can tell you, like, this looks good, but when you sit down in the chair and things are happening, you have to just do it. And, I'll be there to help you or whatever, but like, you're never going to learn to do it unless you actually do it. I think that's probably a good metaphor for life in general. Like, you're never going to learn. You can't just read a book or watch a YouTube video and actually learn how to do something like producing television shows or being a father. You have to actually do it. And then you can kind of get a better idea of what you're dealing with.
Peter Coughter is with me, supervising producer, iHeartMedia. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. This is the On to Something podcast. So sometimes athletes, there's this whole cliche when they look at tape over time and they say the game slows down for them. They're able to really assess the situation built upon the repetitions. And so when they're out there on the playing field or the surface or whatnot, they're able to make decisions faster and they're able to thrive. Taking that to you, say, in the producer chair, how has the game, so to speak, slowed down for you over time?
Well, yeah, like I think that's a good analogy, because I don't think things don't actually slow down. I guess you're just able to think a little quicker, right? Like, you don't like in the NBA, for instance, the games are still happening probably even faster than it was before, but you see things coming. You've dealt with this situation in the past. For instance, like, we lost this clip, doesn't run, so we're going to have to go to break early. And you can recognize that happening earlier and prepare your talent for that a little earlier. So you're a little bit ahead of the curve, or you've seen this happen before. That if, this person says, if the AD says this isn't working or that's not working, then that you need to adjust in this certain way and that will work. Like, it's just basically seeing situations happening in the past and learning from them. And then once you've, you've learned that, you can apply them to future situations. So if like a talent is having trouble with this, you know that, okay, we'll just switch talent. We'll just change this story to this person, whatever it is. There's a million things that could possibly happen that you, once you've seen it happen once, you now know how to react to it. And I've obviously not LeBron James in the situation, but like, he's seen the pick and roll hundreds of thousands of times. So when he knows if the guy's setting a screen a certain way, oh, I need to do this, or if the guy's reacting this way, I need to do that. And it's because he's done it a million times. He knows, he can see it a little faster. It doesn't necessarily slow down, but he can react quicker, and he knows ahead of time what's going on. It's a very much smaller scale of that.
Yeah, for sure. You might not be the LeBron James of producing, but you're the Kevin Durant of producing.
Well, I don't know if I want to be the Kevin Durant or the Kyrie Irving.
But when you think about the fast-paced lifestyle or work that comes with when you're working on a broadcast, and like you said, you have to really be on your feet and have to be ready for anything that could be thrown your way. What kind of demeanor do you carry in those situations that's worked best for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit generational. I think I'm kind of I'm like either a very old millennial or a very young Gen X person. I'm like right on the borderline there. And I think a lot of people older than me in the history of television newsrooms and control rooms and trucks have been a little yelly, a little upset, yes. a lot of cursing. And so I grew up with a lot of that, I saw that happening a lot. And I think, the millennial people kind of learned like, oh, maybe this isn't the best way to do it. We should probably tone things down a little more, happy and inclusive, and everyone, it's just TV. So I think I was able to, like, we're not saving lives. I always say we're not saving lives here, guys. Like, if we go to black for a couple seconds, it's going to be okay. No one needs to scream at anybody. We're going to be all right. So I try to be the good guy in the control room or in the newsroom or in any situation, even if it's, now we're doing a lot of stuff over Zoom and over, and Riverside and whatever, and digital stuff. Try to be the good guy, and so you build up relationships of being, oh, everybody likes this, everyone's happy, everyone's doing well, and you build that up. And then one day, maybe there is a time when you need to be a little bit of a jerk to get something done on time or to get something done a little faster than it's happening. And then you've built up the rapport, you've built up the relationship in the meantime, so that this person who you're now not being as nice to as you like to be is able to, well, he's a nice person. He's just, I understand I need to work, as opposed to like, this guy's been a jerk to me for all year. I'm not going to try any harder for him. I go the other way and try to be as nice and calm and as possible throughout everything, until there's probably a time sometimes where you can't be as nice and calm as you want to be, but hopefully you've built up the relationship at that point.
Yeah, well said. You built up the respect as well. They understand that you're more than just some transactional do this for me, that there's more depth to the relationship. And you said making your team happy. Obviously, when we look at sports and we see some of the dynasties, we see the cohesion that is involved in them, whatever sport you're talking about. And guys more or less are happy with one another. I don't know that at times you can go back to the Lakers in the early 2000s, and there were certainly things that popped up between the players, but ultimately on the court, you have to like each other. How do you make your team happy? And how have you seen that lead to better results in content producing?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be cognizant of telling people when they did a good job. You have to be cognizant of, this person's having a bad day. Maybe I'll take over for them on this thing, and sometimes you forget about that. Like, you just kind of take advantage of someone who's doing a great job every day, and like, you expect that from them. You have to, probably for my own, probably a good reminder for me today to, like, check in with some people and be like, hey, you're doing great. Keep it up. Thank you so much. And you do that, and you keep people happy, keep people, like I was saying before, people respecting you and understanding that you're on their side. You can push it a little farther sometimes if you need to. I know I made the analogy earlier, but like, it's LeBron versus Kobe. You talked about 2000 Lakers, right? Like, I worked for the Lakers at Spectrum for a long time, still work in the NBA. So it's an easy analogy to make. Like, you got the Kobe strategy, where I'm just always a jerk. I'm always a jerk. I'm always upset. I'm always pushing. And that can work, that's like the military kind of like, but then you have the LeBron strategy, where it's like, hey, let's all hang out. Let's all go to the movies. Let's all go to dinner. Let's all be friends, and I think that works as well. It's just, it's a kind of a new generational way to do it. And I try to be more on the LeBron side.
I like that. I like that being, and you pick a little bit from everybody to see what works for you. Peter Coughter was with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. You said that, one of the most important things is checking on others. How do you check on yourself?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, actually. It's one of those things that I developed, I guess, at ESPN when I was used to be cutting highlights. I know it's a strange way to going back 15 years now, or 20 years almost. But like, I would sit there when I'd be watching a game of any kind of baseball game, basketball game, whatever. And like, if there was ever a moment where you weren't doing something, like nothing was happening, you had to have a checklist in your brain of like, oh, wait, this is not right. I need to be doing something at this moment. Like there should never be a time where I'm not busy. I'm just sitting here like watching a baseball game. Something's happening. I'm just missing it. Or like I could get ahead on something else. Or like now is when I need to, like do the cut sheet or alert the editor or whatever. This is a million years ago. But like, that's kind of how I try to do, work now. Like if I'm working on a show we're doing for iHeartMedia, we're doing an NBA show, like I'll lock in and work on the show, and that's great. But there'll be some hours in between where it's like, wait a second, what am I doing? And instead of just relaxing and looking out the window or whatever, I try to think like, okay, there's got to be something I could be doing to get ahead, to help us next week, to help us down the road, to, make sure this person is okay, that person, check in on that. You try to have a checklist in your head, or I have a checklist on my phone now that I have of like a little list of things that like, wait, I can always get ahead on this. I can always do that. And some of that's personal stuff and some of it's like work stuff, but you try to like, whenever there's a moment where you're not doing something, you got to realize, wait, I shouldn't be relaxed. It's like, what is it? It's 1:00 on a Friday. I shouldn't be relaxing. I still have a few more hours. I got to find something to do. And I guess that got ingrained in me, I guess, in that whole like ESPN world for 9 years of just like, there's always something you could be doing to get ahead. It's always something you could be doing to make life easier down the road, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's like the never ending like Ferris wheel, because there's always going to be that guilt that you shouldn't be sitting still because there's always something in front of you. Kind of wrapping up this conversation, Peter, I would assume, with all the reminders that you have, that you as an organizer, I want to know what that's like. I mean, clearly you've got things all figured out when it comes to delegating, and how do you make that part of your life work?
I try. I'm not the greatest like organizer. I try. I have a little list on my phone, on my computer, and I try to keep up with things. But I was thinking about this the other day too. When I was playing golf with my friends in Scotland, and before that, like I used to have this job at ESPN and Spectrum and Turner, where you were 100% locked in, like you were producing a show that day or maybe even the next day or whatever, and you were just like, I didn't check my phone for a text message for 8 hours. I look at my phone, like we get off, the show's over at 11:30, and I'm like, oh, I have 27 texts. Oh, let's see what's going on, like whatever it is. Or I'd never, you just lock in 100% for that day, but then the next day it could be the next day, it could be 3 days later. Whenever you're done, you're kind of done, like you're off. Like you're like, might be a lot of times it was like Tuesday and Wednesday in Bristol, so you had some downtime, and so like you were just off. There's nothing you could really do. I can't get ahead on a highlight for a game that hasn't started yet. So it's like, or I can't do a show about the NBA when they haven't played the games that are going to be happening yet. Like you can't really get ahead on it. You can kind of just take a day off. And so it was easy to kind of shut down. You were either like locked in or completely off. And now I have this job where it's kind of everything's going 24/7, like you could always be doing something. So finding those hours or that day to completely shut off is kind of, like I was saying before, it's kind of hard to like, oh wait, now I can just shut off, but I know there's something I could be doing, but I could put that off till Monday, whatever it is, And that's one thing I learned. Like I always used to wonder why my friends or people in general love playing golf so much. Like I didn't play golf from college to now. Because you can just you have something that's going on in your life all the time, and you can just turn off for 3 or 4 hours and play golf and focus only on golf. I had that ability all the time, so it wasn't that big a deal. Like I always turn off on a Tuesday afternoon. It didn't make a difference. But now I don't. Now I have this job that's always going, and I can just like, I haven't played a lot of golf, but when I do, I get a chance to like, all right, I can just turn off for 3 or 4 hours and like not think about this thing I have to get done, or that email I have to send, or this meeting I have to be in. I can just, all right, I can just do this and only focus on that. And I think that was really interesting to me. Like, oh, that's how people like playing golf all the time, or like they could just shut out the whole world and focus on golf. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
You could also focus on, what your daughter's telling you to do when she's sort of running the house. And that could be another distraction. Peter Coughter, I'm Bryan Fenley. How fun was this, man? Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.